Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I pray you're all well. Right, let's resume from where we last left off. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وامنحنا يا ربنا علما وعملا وقربا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أكرمنا ولا تهنا وأعطنا ولا تحرمنا وآثرنا ولا تؤثر علينا وأرضنا وارض عنا يا كريم وفرغنا من كل شيء إلا من ذكرك وطاعتك وطاعة رسولك ومحبتك ومحبة رسولك صلى الله عليه وسلم. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Okay, so Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We were looking at Surah Al-Maida, the story of the two sons of Adam, Habil and Qabil, and we talked about how heinous murder is, right? And how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish the murderer from those two for his own murdering of his brother, and anyone else who commits a murder after that. That's how serious this is. So the Quran now, because it's relevant, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us gives us a set of rulings that were also relevant to the Sahaba, and that will remain relevant until the end of time because of the severity of this deed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, min ajli dhalika كتبنا على بني إسرائيل أنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا. That is why we ordained for the children of Israel that whoever takes a life, unless as a punishment for a murder or mischief in the land, it will be as if they killed all of humanity, and whoever saves a life, it will be as if they have saved all of humanity. Wow. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَتْهُمْ رُسُلُنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ ثُمَّ إِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فِي الْأَرْضِ لَمُسْرِفُونَ. Wow. Okay. So he says, مِنْ أَجْلِ ذَلِكَ, because of that. Because of what? Because of the severity of what happened between Habil and Qabil. A brother killing his own brother. This should be one of the closest relationships. You came from the same womb. You shared experiences in life, moments of closeness, intimacy. You shared experiences from childhood, right? You grew up together. You have a bond that will last, forever in this life, right? And in the akhirah as well. Such, it has its sanctity. So because of this, and because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not wanting this to be the norm amongst humanity, Allah forbade murder. Min ajli dhalika katabna ala bani Israel. We ordained for the Bani Israel, ordained. Kataba ala, so is to write down, but the root of the intended meaning is to make this obligatory, that to give a ruling of the highest level of importance, make sure this is done and this is not done, right? So which is expressed as either being fard or haram. So maintaining life would be a fard, and it'd be haram to kill. So this shows the severity and the importance of these matters. So why does it say ala bani Israel? Firstly, because look at the context of the surah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to get these messages across them. Remember, they tried to kill the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on more than one occasion. Banu Qaynuqa', the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to see them, and they told him, it was to do with the blood money of someone who'd been killed, and for them to pay towards it. And they told him, yes, of course, and wait here, we'll honor you as a guest or whatever. They told him to sit. He was sat against a wall, and one of them climbed onto the house. So he was on the outside, so he was sat against the wall. One of them climbed onto the house with a rock, and he was attempted to drop it on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which would have been fatal. But Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam came and warned the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he got up and left before the man was able to do so. So murder and treachery and these sorts of things are horrible, and they were forbidden from doing that. So looking at the context, this is why it's mentioned. And also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ruling is for all of humanity. This applies to us as well now, right? So it's also, some of the ulama have said that for other nations it was a ruling that came orally from their prophets, but for Bani Israel, it was written in the Torah when Sayyidina Musa came with the tablets. They say that the 10 Commandments or whatever. So it was the Torah that Allah revealed had this written there. So that's what He says. We decreed against them, but decreed, for them, and it was kataba ala Bani Israel. Bani Israel, it was written for them, right? What was the law? Man qatala nafsan bighayri nafsin. Whoever murders any person, any soul, with the exception, unless bighayri nafsin, unless it's in retaliation for a soul. So bighayri nafsin, for other than a soul. So a person has there's rules and laws on how this is done, the retaliation. But if a person kills another person, then the law steps in, and the family of the murdered have a right to they have a right to have this person killed in retaliation, or they can pardon him and they take blood money, and that's a right that the Sharia gives. But if they choose, okay, we want him killed, he's killed. The person dies, and it's one of the ways. So we're going to look at. Let's just look at it now. We're going to look at some rulings, and people, sometimes these rulings of the Sharia. What is the purpose of them? The ulama say that they are zawajir, they're deterrents, right? And for a deterrent, a deterrent is not meant to be like a speed camera, right? It's there to prevent people speeding in that particular area. What if someone does speed? Yes, they're going to get the punishment. It's a strict liability offense, and they're going to have to pay the fine or get some points or whatever. The camera does work, and it's meant to work, but the bigger purpose of it is not that every person is caught speeding, right? Rather, the purpose of it is that people slow down in the area. It's a deterrent. That's how deterrents work. So there are examples where people who who are speeding get caught by the camera and they get the punishment for it. But there are many, many more cases where people look at it and they learn the lesson, and then they drive at a reasonable speed or the legal speed. They stay below the legal speed limit in the area. That's its purpose. That's the point of a deterrent, a zajir, right? And so in the Sharia, so retaliation is one of these things. As we looked at in detail in Surah Al-Baqarah, that if a person, sometimes people just think, I've got it made, right? They decide to kill someone, and what's the worst that can happen? I'll get locked up. And they'll go into prison, and a nice, easy life. Okay, they don't have their freedom, but they see as, I don't have to pay any bills, I don't have to do anything, I'll get my food, and, I have a nice, comfortable-ish life, for life, or a number of years. And, some people can have that attitude, they don't care. But many people, if they realize, if I kill, I will be killed in retaliation, it drives some sense home, right? And that's been noted, like in many Muslim countries. When I was in Damascus, there were times that, like, if I went to a Mawlid or with some students, whatever, and if I came home, like if I traveled halfway across the city in the middle of the night, it's safe. It's perfectly safe. There's no worry. There's no fear, right? And that's what I felt in Damascus. And if you go to other cities in the world, sometimes even now, even in the Muslim world, but other cities, it's not the case. That it's people don't feel safe and crimes occur. So these deterrents are there to preserve the safety and a standard of living for everyone, right? So let's look. I'll come back to this again. So whoever kills, unless they're killing in retaliation for another soul, or fasadin fil ard, or because the one who they're going to kill. So this would be the law. This would be the people who enforce the law. So someone who kills another for corruption in the land, they've gone and they've caused corruption. So corruption in the land has many forms. So we're going to look in the next verse, but about highwaymen, people who go and rob people on the road and their money, your money or your life basically, and they harm them. In the past, this would harm trade routes. It would prevent people from traveling to a particular area. It can affect the people in the area. I remember in England a number of years ago, there was a strike of lorry drivers. They were striking, and people were panicking in the supermarkets, like, oh my God, no food's gonna come. Let's just panic, buy everything now. And we saw this with the pandemic as well, right? So this I bet there's people who still have the initial purchase of toilet paper still at home. Anyway, so. Right. So, facade, corruption in the land, which has many forms, many forms. So, if it's one of these, I won't go into the details. This is really a section in the books of fiqh that we look at these things in detail. But any form of corruption in the land that, the enforcers of the law, the judge, and the legal system decides this is, too heinous. What we're going to add to this is the term terrorism, right? So any form of causing terror in people, right, is included in this. Imam Abu Yusuf said, for example, people in a city at night, in a built-up area in a city at night, if they have weapons, right, even like if it's a baseball bat, you could say, and they or a stick, and they cause fear in people to get money out of them, or they break into a building. As opposed to a thief who, silently, surreptitiously goes and steals something. They break in, barge in, give me all your money and everything. Then, someone like this, the next verse applies to them, and it's a heinous punishment. So anyway, generally murder, killing people, with the exception of these two scenarios, whoever kills someone, with the exception of these two scenarios, it will be as if they killed all of humanity. How heinous would it be if someone went and committed genocide against all of humanity? Every single person on planet Earth, this person did something to kill each and every one of them. Horrible. Killing one person is bad enough, right? But imagine someone who's responsible for an entire race, entire species of human beings as well, right, to be gone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that the severity of one murder is the same as the severity of this entire case of this scenario of genocide. It's the same. It's not something you want to go near. And people, human beings, have a sanctity. Allah has given them a sanctity. We have a right to our life. Allah has given, in the Sharia, recognizes the right to life, the right, to have your intellect and rational faculties to remain safe, a right to pursue and practice the religion that you want, a right to have your property, and the rulings that are mentioned in the books of the Qawaid and Usul. So these are rights, and then to deprive someone of that is, yes, everyone dies at the time that Allah has appointed for them to die, but for you to take the means to end that is where the sin lies. So here's a problem. So it's as though they've killed all of humanity. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا, and whoever gives life to a soul, literally that's what it means, but whoever does something to preserve the life of a soul. So, doctors rejoice, right? Imagine the reward that you get for doing, for just doing your job and earning your livelihood, right? And whoever gives life to a soul. So this can be by preventing a murderer from killing, telling him don't kill, or saving a person's life, someone who's dying, saving their life, or doing, being part of a process, or doing something to maintain a person's life who would have otherwise died. All of these situations and scenarios can be included in this. So whoever saves this one life, فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا, it's as though he's given life or saved the life, or almost not revived, but he saved the life of all of humanity, right? Imagine there's one evil villain who's got a bomb that will destroy all of Earth, and he's about to press the button, and then a hero comes and pushes him out of the way and destroys the machine and arrests him. So he's it's as though this great thing that he'll have done, saving everyone on the planet. Someone who just saves one life, right, or preserves it, has that same rank and respect and reward, you could say. And then he says, وَلَقَدْ, by God, he swears by God, جَاءَتْهُمْ رُسُلُنَا, Bani Israel, our messengers came to them, they willingly came. جَاءَتْهُمْ, also these tremendous messengers who are from God, of course they're going to be tremendous, and they came to them, meaning that the message did reach them. بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ, they came to them with absolutely solid, clear, absolutely crystal clear proofs. Someone just had to look at them and be convinced these are messengers from God, and what they're saying is absolutely right, fitting, true, wise, let's do it. But these messages came to them, ثُمَّ إِنَّ كَثِيرًا, then this thumma has this meaning of istibad. It's really eloquent, it has this meaning of like, you did this, like almost a meaning of shock, horror, like this, like, I can't believe you actually stooped to this level, you did this. And then there's also this at-Tarahi Rutbi, as Abu Su'ud says, that it's instead of doing what they should have done and respecting them and obeying them, they do something heinous, like it's seen as just really, really bad, and it's so shocking you'd question, like, this, oh my God, it's like, wow, right? ثُمَّ إِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ, indeed, truly, many of them, it's indefinite as well to show a vast number, مِن بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ, immediately after that tremendous lofty matter of the prophets coming with their proofs and their guidance and all the good that they come with, after that lofty matter, many of them fil ardi la musrifun, many of these of Bani Israel, and you can say of humanity as well, right? In many of them are in the land, are truly musrifun. Israf is to be as far away as being balanced as possible, right? So he is someone who's balanced and obeys the laws and is good and religious and righteous, and then someone just on the one extreme of the as far away from this goodness as possible. People who kill and murder and loot and pillage and do all of these things, and they don't care about other people, they don't care about the consequences of their actions in this life or in the next life. They'll murder without a second thought. Many people are like this. Right? So what's going to happen? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a crime that's as severe as killing all of humanity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed a severe punishment for this. So now, let's read the verse and I will explain, inshallah. So he says, إِنَّمَا جَزَاءُ الَّذِينَ يُحَارِبُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيَسْعَوْنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا أَن يُقَتَّلُوا أَوْ يُصَلَّبُوا أَوْ تُقَطَّعُوا أو تقطع أيديهم وأرجلهم من خلاف أو ينفوا من الأرض وذلك لهم خزي في الدنيا ولهم في الآخرة عذاب عظيم. Indeed, the penalty for those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and spread mischief in the land is what? Crucifixion, cutting off their hands and feet on opposite sides, or exile from the land. This penalty is a disgrace for them in this world, and they will suffer a tremendous punishment in the hereafter. Wow. Okay. So he says, Innama. Let's just look at this. So, Innama, clearly, obviously, now know this, right? the recompense, the way you deserve, the way you deal with these people. And so here is not talking to individuals, talking to the state and how the state would deal with these people. The recompense that these people deserve and get, of who are they? الَّذِينَ يُحَارِبُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ, those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger. And there's various narrations. There's various narrations. I won't go into them all, but there's various narrations that state what this is. And one such scenario was the Uraniyin, a group of Arabs who came to the Prophet. They were ill, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari, he pointed them to a cure, and then they got better. And I believe they asked, yes, and then they went, they said, oh, we're Muslims, and then they went off and just stole some camels, and they killed a man who the Prophet appointed to look after the camels, I believe, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then they fled. So betrayal, right? So they went and they were captured, and then they were killed, right? There's a few other narrations. Let's just look at the general meaning that applies in our time, actually. That's yeah, so here it's classed as war with Allah. So war, there's various definitions, but being at war with Allah and His Messenger. So this also applies to, those who represent Allah and His Messenger, those who believe in Allah and His Messenger. Or it can be, certainly does apply to the general populace in an area. So the general believers, or even non-Muslims living in a Muslim land. And clearly these rulings are not, to be applied. We're not saying that they have to be applied in every single place on earth, right? It's rulings that the Sharia rulings, and only a state that decides to apply them will apply them. We're not going to be forced onto everyone else. So so there's so those who are at war with Allah and His Messenger, وَيَسْعَوْنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. So and so those who strive, run around in the land. Sa'i is walking really, really fast, right? So there's effort and exertion. فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا, meaning they put their effort and their mind and their focus in causing corruption and problems in the land. وَيَسْعَوْنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا, they go around spreading great heinous harm in the land. What is their penalty? Right, so it's going to talk about a number of things. Once again, we're talking about zawajir, right? Things to deter. And if like there's various states, for example, in the United States, where they still have the death penalty, and I haven't looked into this, but it would be interesting to see if the crime rate is different in those states compared to the states that don't have the death penalty. Having said this, what we want to look at is, let alone the financial costs. I looked it up a couple of years ago, actually, how much it costs for someone who commits a crime in England, and then for him just to get to court, being arrested, and then for him to get to court, how much does it cost the state? I think the figure was it was around 40,000 just for him to £40,000 just for him to get to court, and after that, and if he's imprisoned, it increases significantly. But look at it, so let alone the cost on the state and everything, and look at it from the situation of the people who are harmed, the people who are murdered, their children having to grow up in life without their father being there, or their mother, or whoever, their loved ones, how they suffer, how much difficulty they go through. Sometimes when people lose a loved one, they don't get over it for life, right? And it affects people for life. I have a friend, his father passed away when he was a teenager. He's affected, like 40 years later, he's still affected by it, and it's one of those things. And murder makes it even worse, because then it's not just the loss of this person, there's also feelings of hatred and whatever towards, generally, towards the murderer, where situations where people don't feel safe, where anyone can just storm into their house and, hurt them, harm them, take their property, harm them in various ways. understand, yeah, people do live in these situations, right? Imagine living with that feeling of injustice, that, that you've been wronged in an unjust way. All of this harm, can occur, and in a very severe way when people are just left to do what they want. So these zawajir in the Sharia, these things that are used to deter others from doing bad, have a wider focus. It's not just, some people just look at these things and the capital punishments and say, oh look, it's inhumane. The point is for you to look at it and think, wow, I do not want to be in that situation, so I don't want to do anything that would get me there. That's the whole point, right? As opposed to someone thinking, I'll commit a crime, and okay, what's the worst that can happen? I'll go to prison for a couple of years. And the person goes to prison, he makes friends with more criminals, he's put back into the same area he was arrested in, and he's got the new criminal contacts, and he's maybe learned a few new tricks inside, comes out, and then it's difficult for him to be integrated into society, a criminal record. So what's the easiest way? Well, just go commit more crime. And then the cycle's repeated until the person either dies or he's in prison for life. It's not a pleasant situation. So what we have here is there's a solution. And once again, it's a state implemented solution. It's not just for anyone to do. And so, when you're looking at it from this perspective, you can see, it makes sense. Right? It makes sense. So let's look at it. So he says, what are the penalties? Someone who does this, and just look at the harm. All people that sell drugs to vulnerable people, and all the other types of crime. Imagine a society where you could, where such actions are seen as so heinous that there's a severe punishment for them. So no one wants to get, or very, very few people actually want to even engage in them lest they get affected, lest they get punished. So what is the punishment? An yusallabu, crucifixion. This is not necessarily being on a cross like how they falsely depict Jesus alayhi salatu wasalam, but generally being tied up in a high place. And then like there are some other things that can be done, like the stomach can be cut, and so they're killed, right? So sorry, I missed an yuqattalu, for them to be killed. And so the wording here is actually quite intensive, meaning they continue to be killed, these people, whenever they pop up, that they'd be killed, or they could be killed. I'll explain why I'm saying that. Where they could be killed, and whenever the situation arises and it's called for, that they're killed, right? And also the intensive form says that they should be killed because this is them being at war with Allah, corruption in the land and causing problems for people like this, and murdering others, and highway robbers and these sorts of things. That is as though they're fighting Allah. So it's not just even if the families of the victims forgive them, they still will be killed, right? Or they're to be crucified, right? So they're killed and crucified, and they're made an example of publicly. أو تقطع أيديهم وأرجلهم, right? Their hands and their feet are cut off min khilaf, so the right hand and the left foot, or they're banished from the land. And banishment now, people might not see this for what it is, but in the past, if you grew up, you generally tended to stay with your people, and being away from them, alone from them, was a very, very, very hard life, especially psychologically. It was very difficult. Just look at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He lived, until the age of 40. He only left Mecca a couple of times. He stayed in his city, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was a common thing for people to do that, to be around their own people. So to be shunned and to be sent far away, it was a big thing. And ulama have said that in our time, prison can be one form of this, right? To be ostracized from society, right? So all of these things, but there's the murder, there's the killing, there's the crucifixion, there's the cutting of these limbs. So there's a difference on this, and the fuqaha like Abu Hanifa and others, what they say is multiple punishments are mentioned to fit multiple crimes. So someone who just goes and causes, scares people, causes terror through, like, not through the threat of violence, or just says through the threat of violence, or someone just breaks into another person's house. They imagine someone breaking into the house of an old man, or old lady. They're just going to be afraid just by seeing someone there, and to take something. So someone like this, are you going to crucify him and parade him around town? Well, they're not paraded, but yeah, their body would be put in a public position for people to see. No, it's prison would suit something like this better. But whereas someone who goes and starts robbing people and murdering them, then death or crucifixion. The punishment has been varied because of the variety of crimes, and the judge would then choose, like any judge in any legal, a criminal legal system, he would choose a punishment that suits the crime. And so that's why they've been mentioned like this. ذَلِكَ لَهُمْ خِزْيٌ فِي الدُّنْيَا. And although there's a lot more that could be said, I'm trying to keep this brief. But there is more that inshallah, maybe we can discuss this in another class sometime. ذَلِكَ لَهُمْ خِزْيٌ فِي الدُّنْيا. That is a humiliation for them in the dunya. Walahum, because, like, for example, to know someone's right hand and left foot is being cut off while they've been committing a particular crime, you don't want to do it. You don't want that situation. They're going to be humiliated being in public like this. So it says, so that severe crime is a humiliation for them in this life. وَلَهُمْ فِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And for them in the akhirah is a heinous, horrible punishment. And adhabun, indefinite, azimun, huge, and that's also indefinite, that word. So the ulama said that this is the one exception from the rule that if you get punished for something in the dunya, you won't get punished for it in the akhirah. If you get a capital punishment for something here, or it's you're not punished for it in the akhirah. But this is the exception. But the exception from all of this is if someone repents before they're captured. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ تَابُوا مِنْ قَبْلِ أَن تَقْدِرُوا عَلَيْهِمْ. Except for those who repent before you seize them. فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. For those in this situation, they're not killed by the state, but if the families of the deceased still want them killed, they can be killed for that murder, but not killed by the state. And if everyone pardons them and the state can't kill them, then then they just have to fix their lives, right? So if they repent before getting caught, so they say, I'm stopping this, no matter what. And if they have killed, they surrender themselves for any particular punishment that's due to them. And if they haven't killed, they've just harmed, people, or just, then they have to rectify that. And there's cases of this. Fudayl ibn Iyad was a highwayman. He repented, became known as one of the, the saints of God, and very famous personality. فَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Know this, understand this, know this, make it deep-rooted knowledge that Allah forgives everything. Ghafurun, He'll forgive anything. Rahim, and after forgiving, He'll give gifts. That's how tremendous Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. So don't close the door of repentance for people. If they've made a mistake, and if there's no other punishment due or whatever, then let them change and let them fix themselves. They may end up like Fudayl ibn Iyad, right? And what a tremendous situation that was. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us and our loved ones, and the properties that He's given us, and our lives, and give us well-being in this life and the next, and to protect us from being people that do these things, or our loved ones from being tried with that. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. And we'll stop here. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.